This week's episode of Trek Geeks is brought to you by FanSets, the place for amazing pin collectibles. They have close to 200 officially licensed Star Trek pins to choose from, with new pins coming out every month. See all the pins and collectibles they have to offer at fansets.com, and stay tuned for this week's special Trek Geeks discount code. FanSets. We are Star Trek.
Hi, this is Nana Visitor, Major Kira Nerys from Deep Space Nine, and you are listening to the biggest little show this side of the Gamma Quadrant, the Trek Geeks podcast with Bill Smith and Dan Davidson.
From a classified outpost at the mouth of the Bajoran wormhole, it's the biggest little show this side of the Alpha Quadrant. No, we're not your independent Star Trek podcast. God, I did that for so many episodes. You'd think I would know by now.
Yes.
I know. The flagship of the Trek Geeks podcast network. Greetings, one and all. Welcome to Trek Geeks. I'm your co-host, Bill Smith, and you've already heard his annoyingly monotonous voice. My co-host, Dan Davidson, is here as well. Hey, buddy.
Hi. That was great.
It's sometimes you're on autopilot.
I know, because we've been doing it for a long time, but you know what? It still sounds good. I miss it. It's like the old days. Legacy Trek.
That's a different podcast.
That's right. Yeah.
It rolls off the tongue rather mellifluously.
Very nice. I like that. It's good to be here.
Whoever came up with both of those phrases really was just a master of the written word.
Absolutely. And that's great. Anyway. How you doing?
Buddy, this is episode number 195. We're almost at a landmark 200th episode of the Trek Geeks podcast. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about a character today that is pretty pivotal, not only in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but marks a huge change in Star Trek overall.
Absolutely. You know, we're doing this celebration of the women of Trek along with our friends at FanSets. And so we're going to concentrate on one amazing female character in the Star Trek universe. And I'll tell you what, I didn't like her at first, and we'll get into all that detail when we start talking about the subject. But Kira Nerys on Deep Space Nine, she was a force to be reckoned with, as I've said in the past. So we're going to dedicate this entire episode about the amazing character that the fantastically talented Nana Visitor portrayed for those 7 years on Deep Space Nine.
You know, it's amazing. We had Nana on almost 5 years ago. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
It was one of, the very first guests we had on the podcast, and she was so gracious with her time. And we had a fantastic conversation. If you have the chance to go back, that's episode 9 or 10.
I think it's 9, yeah.
I think it is 9 because Andy Robinson is 10.
Right.
But yeah, episode number 9 with Nana Visitor. It was one of our, I think it was our second interview overall.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a wonderful experience. Nana is just such a delight. But we're going to talk about the character she played today, and that's coming up in a little bit. What's coming up now, though, is my very talented and loquacious partner is going to regale you with how you can get in touch with us.
Yes, if you're looking to get in touch with us, you can head right on over to trekgeeks.com/contact, where you will find a plethora of ways to get in touch with us. Let's see, there's Skype chat, there's email, there's voicemail. You can click on that giant old-fashioned rotary dial telephone blue button, all kinds of good stuff. I have no idea what I'm saying. But there's, it's always fun. Plus, there's also the most positive Star Trek group on Facebook, Camp Kittimer. It's our official group, and it's where all the Trek talk is always positive with no bashing or gatekeeping allowed. To join the group, just head on over to facebook.com/groups/Camp Kittimer and be ready to be part of a truly wonderful social experience. And as always, we want to thank our wonderful admins, Haley, Jackie, Sarah, and Dan, for the amazing job they do running the camp. But please remember, Damn it, Bill. Remember that any comments or messages that you use in any of these places may be used in a future episode. That's my Kira from episode 1.
Oh, you're throwing it all away. That's my Kira from episode 1 because that's actually her line. That's pretty good. Yeah, and I love. One of these days, I'm totally going to Ron Burgundy you, and I'm going to put the most vile saying in the middle of that copy because I know you don't read it ahead of time.
I was preparing the show earlier today, and I'm like, okay, I got all my stuff in. I pull it up right now. It's all different.
Just that,
right?
Dan, it's time for the news from TrekNews.net. Spanning the Alpha Quadrant. For all the news on all the Star Treks, yo. What? All right, stop that Britney crap right now. I mean, I don't want to hear that.
All right.
That's terrible. It's TrekNews.net. How would you write that out? How would that look?
BLAUUUNANANANA.
Online at TrekNews.net. Wow, Dan is the best speller. He's got all the best words. Dan, first up, speaking of the best things, as we record, Destination Star Trek 2019 has wrapped up across the pond in Birmingham, England, and it looks like it was just an amazingly successful weekend.
It does look that way. Yeah. When is a Trek convention not successful, Bill? Houston, 1982, maybe. Con of Wrath. That's a story for another time. Great weekend in Birmingham, England, with new exhibits and announcements, including Picard's Admiral uniform on display, which looked phenomenal with little subtle changes in colors. I guarantee you that's going to show up in cosplay very soon. If it didn't that weekend, I didn't see any pictures, but who knows? Also, Sir Patrick Stewart was on stage to talk about Picard and said that he expects to see the rest of the TNG crew show up on his new show. And that drew, of course, huge applause. That was very big. And something I think you might be interested in, man, based on the fact that you have just finished up Voyager. Congratulations. We've already seen the autobiography of James T. Kirk and the autobiography of Jean-Luc Picard. And later this year, we'll be seeing the autobiography of Mr. Spock. But announced this weekend will be the autobiography of Catherine Janeway by Una McCormack. Now, I can tell you that the first 2 autobiographies are simply amazing. I recommend them to everyone, and I expect nothing less from Ms. McCormack. It's scheduled for release on July 14th, 2020, and the minute it is available for pre-order on Amazon, I will be placing my order, and you may have a present coming. Finally, Bill, there's some interesting news from Destination Star Trek, and that's that they will be having their annual convention in London next year, November 13th through the 15th, to celebrate Voyager 25. Kate Mulgrew was already confirmed, and get this, dude, there's going to be a Voyager bridge set up for viewing and for photo ops, and I've already planted the seed of heading over to London in my wife's ear, and it was not a no.
That should have been the lead story right there. I mean, talk about burying the lead. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Plus, Roxanne Dawson is confirmed for London. I think Jerry Ryan is confirmed for London. And since there's a year to go, I think that it's going to be a lot of people that are added to that slate, and I think it's going to be fantastic.
I'm very excited about it because my nephew Maddie, who was a guest on Discovering Trek last year, lives in London right now, as he's still working on getting his veterinary whatever the hell it's called, and so he will be looking forward for us visiting. So we go over there, we see Star Trek, we see my nephew. All works out.
I have to say, I really enjoyed Voyager. I'm not a fan of the Voyager bridge.
I'm not, but it's something different. We've seen the same things at STLV over the last several years. So something new is something that I'll give a thumbs up to see.
I'd still get my photo taken on it. I was just commenting about bridges themselves.
Yeah, it's kind of weird looking.
It's rectangular, which is kind of bizarre. And I don't know. I like the captain having their own center seat. I mean, even on TNG, Picard was in the middle.
Yes.
This one, Janeway sits on the left.
A little bit.
And that seems a little weird to me. So,
You're a little weird.
Well, ain't that the truth? So Dan, next up, as we announced last episode, tickets are now on sale for an event that you and I are incredibly excited about.
Okay. Yeah. I'm thrilled. No, just kidding. Why not, man? It's the first for both of us. And we are thrilled that this is happening. As you said, tickets are now on sale for the first ever Trek Geeks Live, taking place on Sunday, April 26th, 2020 at 8 p.m. at the Bank of New Hampshire stage in Concord, New Hampshire. Why Star Trek matters now more than ever is the topic. We will, of course, have other things to keep everyone's attention, including a special top secret segment that may or may not include a musical instrument, Bill. Now, all of our proceeds for this event will go to Granite State Dog Recovery. So pick up your tickets now to have a great night of Star Trek discussion and help the New Hampshire puppies at the same time.
It's going to be a great evening. We're planning a sort of part TED style talk and then part live podcast. And then, of course, the special top secret segment that Dan referenced just a moment ago. I'm really looking forward to it. It's a 300 seat theater in downtown Concord, New Hampshire, the state capital of the Granite State. And as Dan said, you can head on over to trekgeekslive.com or banknhstage.com to get your tickets for only $10. Plus applicable fees. Now, as Dan mentioned, all of our proceeds from the event are going to a great volunteer organization here in New Hampshire. So even if you think you might not make it, buying a ticket directly helps Granite State Dog Recovery and the work they do. So we are very excited. More on that as we get closer. We're about 6 months away from it now.
Oh my God.
But we like to plan.
Yes, you're a planner.
I'm a planner. And finally, Dan, we are continuing our celebration of the women of Star Trek today with a conversation about Kira Nerys, but our friends at FanSets want to make this episode extra special for one lucky listener.
You know, we got the text about this, and I just could not believe it. It's just another reason why FanSets continues to be the best in the business. For the next 2 weeks, folks, we want you to tweet us and tell us who your favorite woman of Trek is, real or fictional in the Star Trek universe, and why. Now, be sure to tag us at Trek Geeks and use the hashtag Women of Trek. We're going to gather all the submissions between now and Sunday, November 10th, and announce one winner on our November 12th episode. And that lucky person will receive, drumroll, please, Bill. Okay.
You did it well enough yourself.
Okay. That one lucky winner is going to receive a framed Women of Trek collector's set. You heard me correctly. And as an added bonus, these pins will be the glitterized versions that you could only get at STLV. Whoa.
I'm floored by that. I mean, that is such an amazing prize. It is a beautiful, like all of the FanSets master sets, they are a beautiful set. And this is going to be a line of pins that they continue to add on to. So that master set is this year's, but there are going to be other Women of Trek pins coming, in future years. So this is going to be just an incredible collection for one lucky Star Trek fan to own. And we are so grateful to FanSets for doing this for one of our listeners, Dan. This is, again, they step up to the plate, and it is nothing short of amazing.
It was a text that came out of the blue. We were just sitting there one night. I was sitting and doing something at home, and I got a text from Lou. Hey, you guys are doing Women of Trek. Let's do this. And he laid it on me, and I'm like, what? So yeah, pretty cool.
Definitely. Well, of course, Dan, we love everybody at FanSets. Here we are. It's another week, another episode of Trek Geeks, another discussion that FanSets is grateful enough to sponsor. We're grateful that they sponsor it. And, as we've always stated, they are so amazing that when you order pins or pin accessories at fansets.com, you're going to get the attention, the respect, and the customer service you deserve because, they're the best in the business. That's no lie.
Yeah, no lie. Not only are they the best in the business, but their product is the best in the business too, man. Case in point, I recently got the Picard family crest from the upcoming Picard series. It is so gorgeous. The colors are vibrant. And the fact that FanSets already has a pin on a show that has yet to be released just goes to show you how awesome they are and how great their relationship with CBS is. You know that with FanSets, you're getting 100% officially licensed products that are second to none.
I wish I could say the same thing about my co-host, but in any event, Dan, as always, for our Trek Geeks listeners, you can get 15% off your entire order at fansets.com this week by entering the word Kira, that's Kira in all capital letters, at checkout. And this discount code is going to be available to use until Tuesday, November 5th, 2019 at midnight Eastern Standard Time.
Fansets. We are Star Trek, and huge thanks to our friends at Fansets for sponsoring this week's episode.
Well, Dan, we convene to consider yet another of the amazing women of Star Trek, and this time we're going to focus on a character, as we may or may not have done in the past, allegedly.
Maybe.
And we're going to talk about the first officer of Space Station Deep Space Nine, Major, later Colonel Kira Nerys. What an amazing character. I consider where Kira starts and where Kira ends, and it's a pretty amazing transformation. It's hard to believe that our conversation with Nana, where we talked about Kira for quite a bit, was almost 5 years ago.
I cannot not even believe that. That's a long time. And it seems like it was yesterday because it was such a great conversation. I just happened to reach out to her via Twitter, not even a direct message. I just sent her a message and told her we were new at this whole thing and we'd love to speak to her. And she was so gracious. We set it up and she was wonderful. And her bird was wonderful. It was a great discussion. She, you can tell that she takes great pride in what she did for these 7 years, and she's very thankful to the fans for what they have given her with our love of the character. And it was such an honor to have her on.
And I appreciated the fact that we're able to have such an interesting discussion about Kira. Some of those facets I know Nana talks about even still today on the convention circuit. We talk about whether Kira would actually, be a character in Star Trek at this point, based on the fact that she's a terrorist.
Right.
Because, Deep Space Nine occurred in a pre-9/11 world. And I thought Nana's answers were fairly interesting. So that's episode number 9, if you want to check it out, our conversation with Nana Visitor. But today we're going to continue on talking about the character which she played so wonderfully for so long. And you'll hear this point during the interview, but this is really the thing that kind of blows my mind, Dan, is truly how different Kira is from just about really any other woman in Star Trek that came before, especially, when we're talking about main cast. Until Deep Space Nine, women had primarily been caregivers or provided some kind of ancillary role, communications, transporter chief, like in Star Trek, the motion picture, doctor, security.
Yeah.
Kira had a much different path, and I think it's one that is quite fascinating.
The other thing that we had never seen up until this character was a female character, a strong female character, which they all were, but she had a huge chip on her shoulder from the very first scene that she was in, and that's not something we were used to seeing as Star Trek fans between the original series, TNG, or any of the movies. And that was something that really stood out to me from the very get-go is how much of an attitude she had. And she had her reasons. You talked about it a few minutes ago. She was a terrorist when she was growing up. And it's very interesting that, pre 9/11 world, we could have that as a character, and it worked so well. But yeah, it's amazing that the writers of Trek were able to give us something that not only had we never seen before, but I think it was something that none of us expected.
I have to agree with that. You figure, so they're putting the characters together. They're writing the show Bible. They're kind of sketching out what Deep Space Nine is going to look like. And at some point, somebody, maybe Michael Piller, maybe Rick Berman, says, "Yeah, we should make her a terrorist who then becomes part of the establishment." And if you think about that, just as a concept, it's like, what? So she, freedom fighter, terrorist, wherever you want to call her, one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter.
Yeah.
Depending on your point of view, somebody who spent their life fighting against the Cardassian occupation, all of a sudden becomes part of this thrown together, sort of kludged together government, in a sort of high ranking position on a space station that becomes pretty pivotal to that planet. without Deep Space Nine being stationed at the mouth of the wormhole, it could be argued that Bajor doesn't see the progress that it should, and certainly doesn't get added to the Federation in, season 7 or later.
And also take to the fact that, yeah, she was this terrorist / freedom fighter, and she's been put into this role that she really wants no part in. And she has to take orders from the Federation, which she does not want there in any way, shape, or form. She thinks it's a joke that the Federation is there. She doesn't think Bajor should become part of the Federation. Where was the Federation during the occupation type of attitude? So right from the very first episode, we see that she's going to be as difficult as possible. But it's interesting that it really starts to change a lot sooner than I thought it would.
Yeah. I think a lot of that pivots when she realizes that Sisko really is the emissary, but we'll get to that in just a second. Mm-hmm. That opening scene where she's in the office and Sisko kind of shows up and she's berating whomever that is from the government, with the, you are throwing it all away.
I love that.
It's, you can tell that she's feisty.
Good word.
Outspoken. Mm-hmm. She's going to tell you exactly what she thinks. And of course, that becomes part of the dialogue in the scene. And, you anticipate that this is somebody who's going to present a massive challenge for Sisko. And that challenge really only lasts about 3 minutes.
That's true. I got to be right up front. Since we're talking about her first scene, and I've talked about this before, but not in great detail. I could not stand this character when Deep Space Nine first came out. And I think it's partly because like we talked about it a minute ago, it was something that we didn't expect. We get this character with a huge chip on her shoulder. She's already got a bad attitude with Sisko, and they just met. And I'm like, I just don't like it. I don't like the way she talks. I don't like the way that Nana is portraying her. I didn't know Nana at all before Deep Space Nine and any of her other roles that she may have done. But it was just, so I kind of was Kira in that I got off on the wrong foot with this character right from the get-go. But that too changed fairly quickly.
Do you think that was the idea?
Maybe. I mean, we've seen a lot of times with characters that you love to hate, but a little bit different in this one. Maybe they're like, all right, let's get people fuse lit right away with this character, and then we'll take it from there.
One of the beautiful things about Star Trek Deep Space Nine is they introduce conflict between the main characters, sort of the opposite of the Roddenberry rule where, the main cast, the crew of the ship had to get along, and any, conflict was resolved by the end of the episode, and it really wasn't all that big of a conflict. But here is somebody who really resents the fact that it looks like they're being occupied again, even though they're not.
Yep.
And it really sets that, like you said, that relationship off on the wrong foot, both with Benjamin Sisko and with the viewer, because we're used to the first officer being somebody that the captain has complete trust in, mm-hmm. somebody who, holds up the best ideals of Starfleet, somebody who, can command the ship if something happens to the captain. And we meet this person right away, and none of those things appear to be true.
It's interesting what you said. Wasn't it in Emissary Part 1, talking about how it's almost like they're being occupied again? Wasn't it Sisko who said, "We're here to help"? And her reply was, "That's just what the Cardassians said 60 years ago," or something along those lines, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting way to start a portrayal of a character by having her so in your face, right from the get-go. And then we kind of see those layers peeled back as the series progresses.
We do. And I think that it's probably one of the more masterful things about the way this character has been created. I don't think we're supposed to like her, but it's very quick that we learn that she's on our side and she's one of us. And I mean that, using air quotes, meaning, she's one of those people on whom we can rely. She demonstrates during that pilot that she is not only able to command and make decisions for that station, but she does so rather well. She's the one who makes the decision to move the station,
right? Mm-hmm.
To the mouth of the wormhole.
Yeah.
And she essentially stakes Bajor's claim on that end, and I think it's brilliant. And I think that the Bajorans have Kira to thank for really a lot of their destiny in that moment.
And I think I think right off the bat, Sisko kind of probably smiled to himself, knowing that he got a first officer who was going to challenge him, and it was not going to be a yes woman to him, and is going to, throw her hands up in the air and turn her back to him when she doesn't agree. Because we see all that happen in the first 10 minutes. So yeah, very interesting. And the only thing I really miss about the station around the Bajor's orbit is that was pretty pretty.
Pretty pretty?
Pretty pretty. That was very pretty, is what I meant to say. So yeah.
Hashtag pretty pretty.
Sorry.
Dan, you look pretty pretty today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, okay, so let's talk about her and Sisko, because, like you say, that relationship gets off on the wrong foot. And we learn pretty quickly that Kira really kind of has to balance a line. On one side, there's her relationship as Sisko's first officer. And on the other side of that equation is, Kira Nerys as a
woman of faith.
Yeah, thank you. As a woman of faith who believes that this person is the emissary to the prophets, the person that her people have been waiting for.
Right.
And that really kind of puts her in a delicate position. It's not something they talk about between the two of them for some time, but you can see that at times there's conflict there, because she reports to this person, but he's the person who's supposed to lead in more ways than one.
Right. So when you're going to disagree with him, how do you actually do that? Will he not look down upon you as the emissary, or will he look down upon you as the commander of the station? And it's interesting how the series progresses, and I don't think I'm jumping ahead because it's part of this discussion point. That fine line she doesn't really cross very often, but when she does, it's really well done. The perfect example that comes to mind is I apologize, I don't have the title up the top of my head, but when they're on the Defiant and Sisko is injured and is in and out of consciousness, and she's taking care of him, and she's talking about, you can't die, you're the emissary to the prophets, and she's talking about her faith and telling the religious stories. That's the best example of what she feels on the inside all the time, but can never really portray it outside except for a very few instances.
See, now I'm trying to rack my brain thinking of what episode that is.
I don't think it's Starship Down.
I think it is.
Is it? Okay.
Isn't that the one that is co-written by David Mack?
Oh, I'll have to find that out. That'll be interesting. Starship Down. Yeah, is that the one where they're in the atmosphere and they're battling the Jem'Hadar without sensors and stuff?
Yeah.
We'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
People know. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, it is actually.
Okay.
Yeah, co-written by David Mack and John Ordover.
Nice.
So,
David Mack is awesome.
Yeah, he is. That's a great episode. The other thing too is that, Kira not only has to balance that line, but disagreeing is one thing, but does her agreement with him at times, does that conflict her? Because there are times where Sisko makes decisions that I'm sure are not in line with what she believes as far as her faith.
Mm-hmm.
So that line is very delicate, and I think it's one that she does as good a job as she can at playing down the middle, because this is a person that is revered in Bajoran society.
And we've seen a couple of instances. There's a second line that she has to be worried about dealing with, and that's if a decision is made by the captain, who is a member of the Federation, making a decision that goes against the Bajoran government, which she is a part of. So you've got that conflict that happens from time to time. So she's got conflicting things happening all the time, and she has to deal with all of that, plus all the stuff about her being a terrorist when she was younger, and Odo having the hots for her, and this, that, and the other thing. It's just a whole mishmash of stuff going on in her head all the time.
I have to believe that, the fact that Sisko struggled with his role as being the emissary was something that probably didn't sit well with her. And it's not the kind of thing she talked about very openly, but you have to imagine that as a person of faith, when one of your religious icons really is kind of not digging the fact that he plays that particular role, it's got to make you look inside yourself and wonder, is this person really the emissary? Am I wrong to put so much stock and faith in this person? I think there were some really great opportunities for more quandaries there for Kira, but by the same token, I'm glad they didn't overdo it, if that makes sense.
How many times has Star Trek completely hit the nail on the head with dealing with things in the real world? How many times do people question their own faith and have to deal with a decision that they have to make based on what their beliefs are? And this is a great example of how they're able to do that subtly with this character of Kira, which makes you think about maybe how you react to things when you're dealing with these type of back and forths or tough decisions. Very interesting writing.
Absolutely, it is. Well, the other thing that's interesting too is her evolution from across the 7 seasons. We mentioned she starts as a very angry character, a character who feels like they've been thrown from one occupation into another, and rightfully so. I mean, she's perfectly justified to feel that way. And by the end, she is a markedly different character. I think, from my perspective, she is a character that is in great turmoil at the beginning, but at the end, I think she's found an inner peace that I don't think that we expected her to find. I don't think that she expected to find herself.
No, absolutely not. And I think she also found, I don't know if forgiveness is the right word for the Cardassians for what they did to Bajor, but there we see her teaching her occupiers how to be freedom fighters when they have to go against the Dominion. It is full circle to the very definition of the phrase, which is really great. The other evolution that I wanted to talk about for just a minute, Bill, which I think is extremely important with the character of Kira Nerys, and I'm trying not to laugh as I say this, is how many hairstyles did she have through the course of the 7 seasons? Because I'll tell you, there were a lot, and I loved the final one when she was a colonel. I thought that was just very well done on Nana. So there you go.
I can't believe we're talking about hairstyles.
As I have no hair.
Well, there's that.
See? Yeah. So in all seriousness, though, you're absolutely right. She goes from one extreme, I don't want to say to the other extreme, because it's not like she just sits and lets everything happen with a big smile on her face. But this is a great example of character growth to the nth degree with Kira Nerys, because we see the bitterness and the angry attitude, and then we see her evolve into a trusted confidant of Sisko's, and then a member of the Federation, or a being promoted to be to be a colonel, and we get to see her relationship with Odo, which we'll get into later, which I'm not a huge fan of, but a lot of different angles with the character over the course of 7 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talk about how Nog has had probably one of the greatest character arcs in all of Star Trek. Mm-hmm. And I think that Kira's arc doesn't get enough credit because it is almost as monumental. She's completely different than when she starts. And the growth that she experiences is kind of amazing. That occurs to me now as we talk about this. The path that Kira is on is quite an interesting one, and I think it's played so expertly not by Nana that I think we forget about it because it was just so natural.
Yeah, I've never really even thought of her character arc, to be honest, because you're right. Everybody talks about Nog, and it's easy to understand. I mean, Nog is a kid who's getting arrested and thrown in jail in the very first episode. And in the last episode of the series, he's been promoted and is a decorated Starfleet officer and is the first Ferengi in Starfleet. So I can understand that arc. But yeah, if you want to sit down and dissect the arc of Kira, that would be a whole episode in and of itself. They aren't Trek Geeks.
It really would. I mean, we've talked about it. She's a freedom fighter. We've talked about how she goes to being the first officer of the most strategic outpost in that part of the Alpha or Beta quadrant, to the inroads they make in the Gamma quadrant, to
the intendant. Sorry,
to assisting the deliberation of Cardassia.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to say,
pretty phenomenal.
I got to say, that's my favorite aspect of the character, is her helping with the liberation of Cardassia, because who would have thought, when we see this character, if you watch the first episode of Deep Space Nine and you say, focus on Kira because I got a question for you, and you watch it, and then you say, okay, at the end of the season, the end of the series, she's going to be helping the Cardassians when they're being occupied. You'd be like, yeah, whatever. And it really is an amazing evolution.
Well, it's an amazing evolution. And I mean, that just speaks to the heart of Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If this is who we say we are, then we have to help these people. If Kira is going to be the person of faith and the type of officer that Benjamin Sisko would hope she'd be, and an entrant into the Federation, then these are ideals that the character should be upholding, and she does uphold them at that time. It's not a job that I don't think she ever would have dreamed that she'd be on, but she's got to help liberate the people that she needed liberation from, and that's pretty deep.
I don't even know what to say to that. It is very deep, but you're absolutely right. It's really interesting. Now, with the phrase "Is this all that I am?" Is there nothing more that popped into my head when you were talking? I don't know if it relates to this as much as with Spock and TMP, but I think there's an argument that it does.
I can certainly see that. I think there are many times when Kira questions whether or not she's doing the right thing the right way, and for whatever reason. I think that she realizes that there's more to being a member of the Federation than just flying the banner and putting on a different uniform. I think she realizes through Sisko's guidance and through serving with him for so long that you not only have to say you're going to do the thing, but you have to do the thing.
Right. Yeah, good point. I like that. So well done.
Kira also has several relationships over the course of the season.
Oh boy.
Now I'm going to state off the bat. Two of them I can't stand. I have no problem with the Odo one. I know you do, but their whole relationship with Bareil. Can I just say I'm glad they killed that character off because I was really tired of that guy.
I mean, his best acting was when he was like sitting in the sick bay with that like metal plate in his head. So we have talked several times about the fact that most of the time relationships in Star Trek just don't work. They don't come across on screen, I think, as the writers mean them to come across. Bareil, I can't remember which I said was worse, Bareil or Shakar, because they both sucked. I just was not a big fan of either of them. I got to go with Bareil. And then we had the Mirror Universe Shakar Flapjack show up. I thought that was kind of crazy too, but she just does not seem to have good luck in the relationship department. And then we have the Odo relationship come on. And yes, I'm not a fan of the relationship. I'm a bigger fan of the relationship than I am of the other two gentlemen. But I thought it lessened the characters, and I don't think Nana and Renee were overly joyed to see that this is where their character arc was going to go. It just, how many times can you just look at the camera and look at Odo make his silly smiley face and Kira give her weepy eyes? So I don't know.
Tell me how you really feel.
Sorry.
I have to say that, of the relationships, I thought the Odo one was fine. I'll get to that one in a second, but both Bareil and Shakar, my main problem with those characters being paired with Kira is that neither of them was as bold or as strong as Kira was.
Mm-hmm.
They were both just way too milquetoast.
Yes, good word.
Just very bland, very uninspiring. Borderline timid. I always looked at Bareil as timid, and I don't know why, but that's maybe just because he's quiet and reserved and solemn. But I expect the kind of person with Kira to be not necessarily formidable, but to have a presence and a gravitas. And I'm sorry, Shakar does not have that.
No, gosh, no, neither one of them did. Now, I will give Odo credit. He's got gravitas. And I don't want it to sound as if I hated it, because I didn't hate it. I just, there were parts of it that I really didn't like. There were parts of it that I absolutely loved. And one example that comes to mind right away, which I want to make point of to show that I really respected it, was the episode, again, I don't remember the title because I haven't had time to think about it except just right now. When they're doing the mission and they're in the Jem'Hadar fighter, and Odo is holding his form together, and he doesn't want Kira to know that he's sick and really suffering. And there's one point where she's looking away, and he goes, bah! And he turns the corner, and he's peeling and flaking, and he's all wrinkly and slimy. And she comes over and she hugs him, and he goes, "I didn't want you to know." And she's like, "I've known all along, and I love you." And that is the best Odo Kira moment of the whole relationship. So there are good moments. I just thought that the way it came about and the way that it kind of went sometimes was a little meh.
Here's why I really like the relationship. It's because there's a mutual respect and affection, and a key point being the affection between those two characters before they ever get together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that is born out of their long history. It's not just two characters they pair together because it makes a good relationship. There's a natural progression there.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of like it. Plus, I mean, Odo was a bit of the underdog. He's the shy kid on the playground. And you see him get the win, and that was something that was good. Plus, I mean, Odo is the ultimate white hat. Yes, at times his methods are a little stringent.
Mm-hmm.
There are times where perhaps he lets Quark operate when he ought not, but ultimately, Odo's a good guy, and that he's going to be respectful of Kira. By the same token, Kira is not going to treat Odo poorly because she does have that sense of honor. Mm-hmm. I think that the Odo relationship to me made sense because she could take a step back and let the major facade fall off and just be Nerys.
That's a good point. I'll give you that. I think what I need to do, as I've done with several things that we've talked about here on Trek Geeks that I may not have liked over the course of Star Trek's history, Move Along Home being a perfect example, is if I go back and rewatch the episodes that start with the relationship all through the rest of the series, I'm willing to bet you that I would have a better appreciation for it. As you've been talking, I've been thinking about other examples about how the relationship was good in the show, but also how it became a very important piece of the whole story arc. Like when he went not behind her back, but he was with the female shapeshifter after he promised her he wouldn't. Very interesting little argument and hurt feelings. How about the time that future Odo or past Odo from the Gideon planet said, "I'm the one who actually made the change to the course, which caused them all to be eliminated from history."
Children of Time. I was just going to bring that up.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's a moment I love between these two characters. Now we can move into talking about episodes that that we really appreciate, or scenes. I really love that scene, even though I think it's a total cop out. Because the way that Kira finds out that Odo's in love with him is because future Odo tells her.
Mm-hmm.
Because regular Odo is in a containment field.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of the whatever is the atmosphere or whatever. Mm-hmm. I can't remember off the top of my head, and it is such a beautiful moment where she comes to that realization, and he finally pours out his feelings. He looks a little more like a humanoid.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of time to think about it. He knows she's only there for a brief period of time. And then he essentially sacrifices the entire colony so that she can continue to live on.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of mind-blowing. It says how much he loves her.
Mm-hmm.
And it really kind of puts Odo in a bucket in a really bad spot when he finally rematerialized. I'm like, wow, Odo really just screwed Odo.
Odo in a bucket. That was great. Hashtag Odo in a bucket. I like that one. But yeah, it's a great scene. You got the field and the wind blowing, and you can see that smile on his face, which is more of a real smile. And the thing that surprises me about that, though, is that she acts so surprised about Odo's feelings. And I didn't think she was that blind. It's pretty obvious to everybody on the station, even Quark, how he feels about her. And she's the only one who really never saw it. That just didn't really always make sense to me.
It's that episode blows my mind because it allows an entire civilization to just disappear.
Zing.
Based on love.
And you're better off without it, and I'm better off with a mine.
Oh, yeah. Whatever. It's one of my favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine.
Great. It's a good episode.
But when I think of other, Hallmark Kira episodes, even just in season 1, I can look no further than 2 in particular. Progress.
Mm-hmm.
because that episode with Brian Keith is one of the best Kira episodes ever.
Yep.
She's forced to confront her society, her what she believes about Bajorans to get this one guy out of there. And then, of course, Duet. The season 1 standout with Harris Yulin as Eamon Maritza or Guldar Heel, depending on what you believe. 2 amazing performances, one earlier on in the season, one later. But they really kind of give you the sense of who Kira is and what she's willing to do.
Mm-hmm. I had both of those on my list. They're both fantastic examples. For her to burn down that house in Progress, or the little, she throws the fire on the roof there. That's amazing. Second Skin is one that I think is a fantastic Kira episode. She forms a relationship with her hated enemy, the Cardassians. I think that's a very strong Kira growth story. And I also love Heart of Stone. And what's funny about Heart of Stone is that it's not Kira, but it's a strong Kira story.
Right.
So I think that's a really good one. And I also threw in as an honorable mention, Wrongs Darker Than Death or Night.
It's like you're in my head.
Because she finds out that, her mom was a collaborator with her sworn enemy of all existence, Gul Dukat. Awesome storytelling.
It's fantastic. That one alone, written by Ira Stephen Bear and Hans Beimler. It's fantastic. Well, you get a little Bajoran orb action in there.
Mm-hmm.
You get a whole bunch of Mark Alima, which I'm okay with.
Absolutely.
You get Kira's mom. It's a fantastic story, and I think it provides some really important context to Kira, and it really kind of rocks her world.
Do you have a favorite line of Kira's that really stands out in your head?
Oh boy.
I mean, I know there's a lot of them.
Well, I mean, you get the sense, I'm going to go back to the pilot for a second, Emissary. You get the sense of who Kira is going to be for the rest of the series at the very end of the episode when she's having that dialogue with Quark. And she says to Quark, you better take that hand off my hip or you'll never raise a glass with it again.
Yes.
And that tells you precisely who Kira is.
Mm-hmm.
And it telegraphs who she's going to be for a good chunk of the series.
Yeah.
And I think it also telegraphs who Quark is. But I like that scene in particular because it's a great jumping off point for those characters.
Yeah, I think one of the best lines, it's one that always stands out, the way it's delivered and when it's delivered. It's in season 7's Tacking Into the Wind. Damar says, to kill her and my son, the casual brutality of it, the waste of life. What kind of state tolerates the murder of innocent women and children? What kind of people gives those orders? And Kira goes, yeah, Damar, what kind of people give those orders? It's just awesome. It's the one that always stands out to me because she is just giving it right back to him, and then she instantly regrets it. But Garak says, no, he needed to hear that. That is the quintessential Kira perfection moment in my mind. Love it.
Now, I'm going to come back with an episode that not a lot of people like, and it is one of my favorite Kira episodes. And it's season 5, episode 11, The Darkness and the Light.
Mm-hmm.
The episode where members of the Shakaar resistance cell are being assassinated.
Yes, I used to not like that. I do like that one now.
And pregnant Kira is left as kind of the last member standing, aside from Shakaar himself. But I think it is a fantastic episode, and you get to see Kira with a variety of emotions, especially at the end, because here she is pregnant with Kiriyoshi. We don't know it's Kiriyoshi yet, but having to face this Cardassian, melty face Cardassian guy, and it's a really compelling story. Prin decides that he's just going to take the baby out of Kira.
Yeah.
And that's pretty dark, man.
It is a dark episode, and hence the title, obviously. And it's interesting that she's in that beam of light the whole time, and he's always kind of hiding in the dark. I actually wrote that down, but I didn't mention it, so I'm glad that you did. There's so many good episodes about Kira that we don't really even realize that they are strong Kira episodes. There's one particular one. Covenant, I think, is one. It's not really crucial to her character development, but isn't that the one where their Dukat Nerys' storyline kind of concludes. I love the Dukat Kira relationship and the back and forth, and how he seems to think that they're going to be friends, and she's like, no, not at all. And I think even if he had not been the turning, the evil and the force that he was at the end of the series, even though she helps Cardassia fight the Dominion, I still don't think that there would have been any forgiveness or mutual understanding between the two of them. I
agree 100%. Yeah, that's a season 7 episode, the one where he admits that he's been possessed by the Pa Wraith.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, fantastic episode. You're right. There are so many great Kira episodes. I tend to focus more on some of the lighter moments with Kira.
Mm-hmm.
What is it, in The Way of the Warrior, when Worf meets Kira and Dax the first time, and they're wearing those sort of, Excalibur kind of gowns and hats. That's funny.
Yes.
I love the scene where Kira is getting ready to depart the station in the season 2 trilogy that opens the season.
Mm-hmm.
Homecoming, The Siege, and the Circle.
Yeah.
Homecoming, Circle, and the Siege, whichever it is. And there's that scene where everybody comes to say goodbye to her, and it's like it's one long shot, and people just keep coming in.
Yeah,
and it's a great scene. It shows you the camaraderie between the cast members and the crew. But there's so many moments like that.
Let me throw one more out at you, because it's not a Kira episode at all, but I think in talking about my having a better appreciation for the relationship between her and Odo, I'm going to throw Chimera in there. That's the episode when J.G. Hertzler plays Laz, the shapeshifter. And Odo is trying to figure out if he wants to go with him to go look for the other 100. And Kira says, if that's what you need to do, then go. And that shows the respect that she has for his beliefs. Even though she doesn't want to lose him, she's willing to let him go because he needs to make that decision for himself. Nobody can make it. Nobody can make it but him. I like that.
I like that too. Another of my favorite episodes, as far as Kira is concerned, and the dynamic between her and Odo, it's a very different one. And that's the episode Necessary Evil from season 2. Odo is investigating an attempt on Quark's life, and it reopens a 5-year-old murder investigation, one that Kira was investigated for by Odo 5 years ago. And it turns out at the end of the episode, the alibi she gave him was a lie. Kira really did it.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
That puts their friendship on some very unstable ground.
Right.
I thought it was masterful the way they introduced that conflict for those characters at this point. Odo's belief in her is shaken, and Kira, that doesn't set well with Kira. She doesn't like the fact that Odo found out. She likes the fact less that she had to lie to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate what it does for the dynamic between those characters, and also it's a great episode.
Do you think that the seeds of the relationship was planted, or that the writers knew that they were going to do that with the characters way back in season 1 and 2?
I have to think no. I mean, I could be wrong. I honestly don't know, but I almost want to believe that they couldn't have known at that point. Now, they had to give them something to come back from, but it's enough that their friendship just gets back on track because they have to rely on each other after that. But I have a hard time believing that they knew they were going to get them together at that point.
Okay, cool. I like that.
There's just such ambiguity there at the end that, I can't believe that they go, oh yeah, we're just going to get them together as a couple later on, like season 5.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like Deep Space Nine wasn't written like the shows are today, where it's 5 seasons, but they have the whole arc already written up before they even start the series. So it's just something that popped into my head.
Well, okay then. Well, Dan, we'll probably actually no. I want to talk about one other thing before we get on to that. So back when the Deep Space Nine documentary premiered earlier this year,
yes,
there was a season 8. I'm getting ahead of myself. Season 9, a season 8 sort of story breaking, what the first episode of season 8 would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And in that part of the documentary, I thought it was pretty fascinating because it picks up 25 or so years later. And obviously Nog is a captain and everybody has gone their own ways. But Kira looks like she's the Kai.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's not being very honest about things.
No.
Yeah. See what happens when you become a political pawn, Kai, Kira?
No, obviously we don't want to go too much into it for those who haven't seen the documentary. You really should. It's a wonderful
absolutely
to a fantastic series, but it's interesting where the writers thought to take her after that. What other conflict can we introduce for Kira and for everybody else? Oh, I know. Let's make her the religious leader of the Bajoran people. And maybe she's doing something she ought not be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating stuff.
It really is. And you think about how much she despised Kai Wynn. I don't know if she despised Wynn because of Wynn or because of the whole how you had to juggle politics and religion in that role. And then boom, she's the Kai. And it's going to be like, what threads had to be pulled on that sweater to make that happen? Because that was a shock and a half. And it was a good shock, I think. You're like, oh my God, what's going on? And then as you find out, like you said, we don't want to give everything away, but then when you find out what's going on, it's even more of a, what the heck is happening situation. And the fact that they only showed us what the first episode would be like was really aggravating.
It's mind blowing. You figure when we leave her in What You Leave Behind, she's essentially in command of the station.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if it's replaced with another Federation commander or if she retains command because Bajor is going to join the Federation.
Right.
And to go from where she was to where they think she'd be in season 8.
Yeah,
it's mind bleepery to the nth degree, man.
It really is, but it's a good mind bleep.
It shows how rich the character is and the things they can do with her.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's our kind of Women of Star Trek retrospective on Kira Nerys. I love talking about these characters because they deserve these types of examinations. I can't wait for the next one because these discussions are always so much fun.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll write something up. We'll schedule it. How's that?
Oh, will you now?
No, I agree. It's been great that we've done this a few times now, and it really gives us a better understanding of these characters. And like we just had a moment here where I'm now going to go back and watch something to see if I can get a better appreciation for something. So it opens up all kinds of doors. Don't you think?
It truly does. Dan, you know what else opens up all kinds of doors? Knowing 5-Year Mission.
Oh, wow. Very
I'm
good.
just going to throw that out there. They provide every last note of music you hear on the Trek Geeks podcast. They themselves podcasters on our podcast network with 5-Year Mission, the podcast. We love everything these guys do, and their podcast is no exception. If you haven't checked it out, you really should. It's available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Google Podcasts and wherever you can get fine podcasts in your ears. But definitely check it out. Their 4th episode, I think it is, just was released.
Yeah.
And it's great stuff, man.
When is it not great stuff with 5-Year Mission? Everything they do is gold. They're like Rumpelstiltskin or something.
Farkelstiltskin?
Wow. See, good. Bill's first Farkism on the show. I like it. But, we're sitting here laughing, I should say. Go ahead.
Well, but we want everyone to head out to 5yearmission.net, download all their music or buy the CDs. We love physical media.
Oh, yes.
And then go download 5-Year Mission, the podcast, because they're having great discussions about their music, about other music, about Star Trek. It is just fantastic stuff, Dan.
We love them. And like I said, we were sitting here laughing, but, it was a sad day, my friend, when, I'm getting all choked up. He was diagnosed with xenopolycythemia. You remember that? Rare but deadly. And the band had to accept the fact that there was nothing they could do. Thankfully, though, they came across that asteroid Yonata and the High Priestess, Kira Rittenhouse. And with the help of the Oracle, they cured him, and he could continue to create beautiful music for the entire galaxy. For the world is hollow, and I have touched the Fark. It sounds a little dirty, but that's okay.
I am without speech. For the world is hollow.
Yeah.
And I have touched the Fark.
I don't know if For the Fark is hollow would have worked any better.
It might have been a little better. I have touched the sky. I have touched the Fark.
Oh.
If you say it quick enough, it sounds like I have touched this guy. Named
there
Fark.
You go.
Named Fark.
Wow. Anyway, 5yearmission.net.
Yeah, 5yearmission.net. Please go buy all their CDs. Yeah, of course. Don't forget, in addition to 5 Year Mission, the podcast, and Trek Geeks, you can support the Trek Geeks network of podcasts by subscribing to bonus content on Patreon. You get access to content you're just not going to get anywhere else. You can see our annual supporters pins from FanSets and even get raw, unedited audio of our podcasts, along with a whole bunch of other perks, Dan.
Indeed, and we'd like to take a moment to thank our associate producers for Trek Geeks. We are so grateful for their support. Adam Sanders, Brandon Everidge, Heather Sohn, John Krikorian, Rick Tatro, Trey Womack, Sean Lynn, Shane Murray, Tim Robertson, Tim Serdar, Vikram Bhatt, Greg Rozier, Andy Fark, Kimberly Francis, Ron Robel, Brooke Horton, Christina Werther, Jim McMahon, and the glorious and wonderful Conrad Hutchins.
Oh, he's glorious this week. That's
glorious.
Fantastic. We also want to thank our Trek Geeks producers for their support. They are Ken Tripp, Casey Shafsky, Charlie Mulvey, Chris Trebuzio, Craig Ewing, Eric Extreme, Jackie and Chris Hackney, Leonel Marchand, Matt McGonigal, Mike Bovia, Harry Michelson, Patrick Escudero, Sean O'Halloran, Peter Craig, Ben Russett, Ken Bird, Jamie Rogers, David Hood, and the lovely and talented Jess Vashon.
You too can become producer on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. Head on over to patreon.com/Trek Geeks for more information.
Next week, Dan, it has finally happened. I say finally, it took a while, but the time has come, hasn't it?
It has come, man. 50 plus years. That is how long it took you, my friend. But you stayed with it. You got the job done. You are now one of us. Your journey is complete, at least to this point. You finished watching Star Trek Voyager, and you are now a completist. This is a time to celebrate, for tomorrow we all may die. So next week, we're going to do exactly that. We're going to celebrate this, man, because it's big news. It's an exciting feat. We're going to be joined by our good friend, John Krikorian of the Trek Profiles podcast. We're going to break it all down next week on Trek Geeks, the flagship podcast of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
So how can it take 50 plus years for me if I'm only 50 years old?
Because you're more than 50 years old. You're 50 years plus 28 days. 50 plus. Boom. I knew you were going to ask that question, you big jerk.
Well, no, because I'm like, wait, 50 plus.
Yeah.
God.
Well, there you go. You started right from day one, baby. 50 plus.
I actually didn't. I started when I was about 6 or 5 or 6.
You are just so stupid.
Yes, you are. Of course, for more great Star Trek podcasts, please check out the other member podcasts of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, the Star Trek Podcast Network for your fandom. In addition to Trek Geeks and Discovering Trek, there's 5 Year Mission, there's Polytrex, there's Rewind or Rewind, as Haley and Sarah say it. And we've got Trek Geeks Game Night, which is another fantastic show, and some others coming very, very soon. You can find them all at trekgeeks.com. Of course, for more great Star Trek news, for all the news on all the Star Treks, please visit our great friends at treknews.net. For now, this has been episode number 195 of the Trek Geeks podcast. We do hope you all live long and prosper.
Cry coconut, and let's slip the dogs of war.
What are you doing?
Doesn't he spin in his chair in that scene or something? I just broke my knee.
While he's saying cry havoc, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I just want to do one last thing for the video, people.
You're going to cry, oh, I busted my kneecap.
Sure did.
Yeah, way to go, genius.
Music for Trek Geeks is provided by 5 Year Mission. They are writing one song for each episode of the original series. Download their music at 5yearmission.net. Trek Geeks, a Star Trek podcast, is a production of Coconut Media Works, executive producer Bill Smith. For even more Star Trek discussion, check out Discovering Trek, a Star Trek Discovery companion, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and discoveringtrek.com.
Bing bong, Dan. Bing bong.
Whoa, bing bong, big boy.
Whoa, that was very alliterative.
Whoa, what is? I don't even know what that means.
I'm not surprised.
I was going to do like an English bing bong because of Destination Star Trek, but why bother with that intro? Whew.
What, did you have tacos or something?
So you just had a hot flash there. That was pretty intense, man. Thank you.
At your age, that happens, I hear.
And well, at your age, you're only, you're 52 now, or 50 also.
52? Go to hell.
Yes. Sorry. My punctuation and grammar was not accurate.
I'm stunned by that revelation.
That never happens.
Never.
Did you notice I didn't chime in on the champion mistype on Twitter this week?
If you had, I was going to just light you up mercilessly.
I'm like, not going to do it. It wouldn't be prudent.
Yeah.
Anyway,
not so prudent. So, right. So we're back in the saddle. I'm over my hellacious cold. It was terrible.
Yeah, you were not feeling good at all. So I'm glad you're feeling better. You're looking good. I had a little bout of something over the weekend. So this is why this is getting out a little later than normal. And that was, I wanted to die Friday night. That was horrendous. So, but I'm all good now.
A little bout of what? Shore leave, Admiral.
You beat me to it. I was just about to say it.
You were a little slow on the draw, so I wasn't sure you knew where I was going.
I knew where you're going. Yeah, wonderful stuff, that Romulan ale.
2283.
Yeah, 2283. It's a good year. Good year. We didn't get the.
Well, yeah, it takes the stuff a while to ferment.
It does. Speaking of wine, we were going to. Romulan ale, wine, whatever. We were going to crack the Chateau Picard this weekend, but because I was under the weather, we didn't.
Nice.
Yeah, so we'll do it later.
We expect a full-on review.
You'll have it. Maybe I'll do it live on Trek Geeks one day while we're recording. I'll be like,
you could even do video of it, and we'll post it.
Okay, I can do that. Drink it right out of the bottle like Van Sitters did.
What don't you really mean drink it out of the bottle like Dan Davidson does normally?
You have no video proof of that,
except normally it's packed in a paper bag and you're sitting in a back alley somewhere.
And it's called Mad Dog 2020
Thunderbird
Boone's Farm strawberries.
You're the only person I know that calls Franzia juice boxes.
It is juice. Grapes that burn. Sorry.
So many comments. None of them are good. One of them is eventually going to tie back to Michael Jackson. I'm sorry.
I think we'll just move along home.
Let's jeter. Oh, second shaft.
Yeah, thank you.
Second shaft. That's fantastic.
I try to throw them in there when I can, and I'm not as good as you are, but once in a while.
That's just genetics. I'm sorry.
So, going to be a good conversation that people will have heard by the time they hear this, right?
Wow, you set that up like a master. That's amazing.
a little orb of time action going on right now. Woo! See what I did there? Yeah.
I did because I'm watching the video. And it's people listening on their iPhone may not, but we're going to see if we can post the video of this maybe to Camp Kittimer.
Oh, boy. Oh, Camp Kittimer now. Oh, great. Okay. Hi, Camp Kittimerites.
Hi.
Trek Geeks. Are you ready?
Now do it. So you when the green rectangle is around your box, that means the video is focusing on you.
Oh, all right.
You probably want to wait until that happens.
I'm just going to go like that and go, Trek Geeks, Trek Geeks. Yeah, okay. Put me in front of a camera and just weird things happen.
So many places to take all of this. None of them good.
None at all.
None.
Yeah.
I've got so many thoughts, but this is a family show.
Apparently.
Sorry, I had to yawn in the middle of the sentence there because you.
So am I boring you?
Yeah, actually, you are.
All right.
So we got a lot of podcasting to do this weekend. We got.
Oh my good Lord, you do.
I do. We got episode number 196 we're recording this weekend about my Voyager completionist badge.
Yes, congratulations. You'll get many kudos during the podcast, obviously.
Thank you. We're doing a roundtable for our Patreon supporters where they get to come in and ask me anything, and I'm going to answer as honestly as I can.
I might have to jump in to ask you something.
I'm not going to answer anything you ask.
All right. I'll have somebody else do it.
Yeah, whatever.
Shafsky.
Please. Yeah, no, I can only imagine what Casey's going to ask.
Oh, good Lord.
It's a good thing that we're not releasing that in our feed because we'd have to rate that E, and it's not for everybody. It's explicit.
Nice. PlayStation. Sorry. Anyway.
Or Xbox One. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So we try to do these quarterly. Sometimes it's a little longer, a little shorter, depending. But if you are interested in a future one, you can always check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Trek Geeks, where subscription levels start as low as $1 a month, Dan.
100 cents.
Wow.
4 quarters, 10 dimes, 20 nickels, $1 bill. Rip a $10 bill into 10 pieces.
The 1/2 part of a $2 bill.
There you go. I like that. Excellent. See, a whole bunch of different ways you can contribute because math is not hard.
Math is not hard. So in the Broadway musical Big River, 2 Star Trek alums are in that cast. Rene Auberjonois is in it, and also Bob Gunton, who is in the episode The Hunted, playing Captain Benjamin Maxwell.
Mm.
And they have a song together. It's called The Royal Nonesuch. And they're these 2 hucksters who are just trying to, they're essentially snake oil salesmen, I think. And at one point, Renee has the line, just 50 cents, the 1/2 part of $1, which is, he speaks it, trying to get people to come on in and see the show. So that's where I got that from. Just a little tangent.
I could like to see him do that as Odo. Because he'd ended off with,
yeah. Rene Auberjonois, lots of musical and musical theater credits to his name.
I love him as the chef in Little Mermaid.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
When I found out that was him, I was like, oh my God.
I know, right?
It's the guy from Benson.
What was his name? Clayton
Endicott III.
Endicott, that's the one. Yes, yes.
And Ethan Phillips was the budget director guy named Pete, whose last name I don't remember.
I don't remember. I never really watched much of Benson back in the day. Yeah.
Did you watch it front in the day?
You're so stupid.
You don't really watch The Office, but that was really kind of Michael Scott-like, the way you paused and just said that very quietly.
I'll take that as a compliment because I have watched a little Office. He is so annoying.
But so funny.
Yes, absolutely. Very funny.
So that's where we're at.
All right.
So yeah. We were ready to talk some Kira Nerys.
Yeah, good to have you back in the saddle, my man. Looking good in that Star Trek chair, all ready to go. Wish I had one of those.
Sorry, it's my Charles Nelson Riley.
Wow. Oh, you're Paul Lynn.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
The Paul Lynn Halloween special. I didn't know that such a thing existed.
And the Paul Lynn Christmas Carol.
I've not seen either.
I'm sorry, not Paul Lynn. Rich Little.
Oh, who cares about Rich Little? He sucks.
No. Just saying.
Yeah, Paul Lynn is like Rich Little, please.
Okay.
I suppose we should end this the way we normally do. You ready to do this?
I'm ready.
Let's go, y'all.
Y'all? Wow. Coconut.